Welcome back. We're still watching Daybreak on this 9th day of January 2023. My name is Sam Gituku and I'm in studio still with Silvana Sosoro, the Majority Whip, Senator Dan Manzo of Makueni, and Kuria Kimani, the Member of Parliament for Molo constituency in Nakuru County. And you're still talking about the outlook of 2023. We've spoken about the retreat that was in Nanyuki sometime last week, towards the end of last week. And now I want us to focus on something deeper because, yes, Senator Manzo says that Kenyans are still waiting with expectation on delivery of the promises that were made during the campaign trail. They've been many, and of course they continue. We've heard from the top leadership of the administration, and they said that in the coming months it will start getting better, but there are certain things that may wait a little longer. And let me begin with you, Honorable Kuria, because the president says that when it comes to borrowing, yes, a slowdown to the borrowing, including what arrangement had been between the government of Kenya and the IMF. Yet we see, even though marginally, according to the data from the National Treasury, in November, I believe, or is it? No, it was October. The public debt had risen to 8.7 trillion shillings, up from about 8.6 by the time the president was taking over. Even if you slow down, and you're saying that you go ahead to raise the taxes, and you're calling for balancing, how exactly do you do that at a time that there are all those promises, the fertilizer subsidy is ongoing, you've withdrawn those other consumption subsidies? How much more can you really tax, and from where? Because the president is working with the target of raising the taxes, the tax revenue by up to $1 trillion. How do you do that?
Thank you, Sam. It's going to be a tough year, but we're ready for it. The only way that we are going to steer this country forward is if we raise on revenue. But what has been happening over the years is that it is those people that pay taxes that have been paying more taxes. The target has always been the news on every finance cycle has been an increase in excess duty, increase in VAT, and increase in sometimes a corporate tax. So talking about those people that are already in the tax system, that in the tax net, you and I that have a payslip, the corporates that have the VAT machines are the ones that have been paying more taxes. But you have very many other people or many other businesses and many other enterprises that have not been paying the rightful share of the tax. And so what the Kenya Revenue Authority is doing and what our Treasury is doing is finding out the best ways now to target these people into the tax net. I'm talking about people who run, for example, hardwares in, say, River Road, for example, and then they turn around even 10 million shillings every day. But they're only registered, the only way they run their businesses is through a business name. And therefore, they do not pay any of the taxes that you pay. But if, Sam, you go and start your own media house and call it Sam Gituku Media Services, then you end up paying 30% corporate tax, even when you only make 5 million shillings a year. If you employ two journalists, then the 2 journalists will pay a payee every month. But that person who is turning around 10 million shillings every day, their employees are not paying income tax, and he's in the list. If he has registered the company, then he files new returns. So talking about using intelligence systems, including now getting into the existing structure and making sure that everyone is in the tax net. Because if you have everyone paying their rightful share of taxes, then some will not have to borrow, and we're going to increase the national revenue. It's not going to be easy. There are going to be resistance about it, but we cannot. Again, we cannot continue to have a few people paying taxes and then everyone else who should be paying even a lot more, not paying the rightful share of tax, and expect development, and expect growth, and expect counties to receive their monies on time. We're going to find out, for example, these contractors that work with the county governments, for example, are they remitting their withholding tax? The tax, for example, the withholding tax, is it paid on time? So if we have everyone that should pay taxes paying their rightful share of tax, then this target is actually achievable. But if we're going to focus on the traditional way of having those people that are already paying their rightful share of taxes, burdening them again now with more taxes, then we might miss a point. And this is now the discussion we're having. After I think in the next 2 weeks, we have the committee's retreat. So we have, like, for example, for my Committee of Finance National Planning, we're going to have the inaugural retreat now to focus on our work plan, for the year. And almost immediately after, start processing the finance bill. And the finance bill now is the one that's going out to look at all these tax raising measures that we're supposed to use to raise revenue for the government. And it's very clear. Sam, we're also looking at some of the laws that have been passed without following due process. I will tell you, Sam, we have so many taxes that we are not able to collect because some people took us to court. They took Parliament to court because, and when I looked at all those regulations on all those tax issues that people in the corporate sector have taken us to court on, there were two reasons that were given on the judgment. One was they were in contravention of the Constitution, but the biggest reason was lack of public participation. Where we had amendment on omnibus amendments that were being sneaked in, at the tail end of the finance bill. And therefore, when we were taken to court, we were not able to actually prove that we actually carried out sufficient public participation. And that is some of the things that we are, for example, looking at doing, that making sure that every revenue-raising measure that is going to be approved through the finance bill at the National Assembly, in which I am the chair of that committee, has to go through the due process. So that by the time we finish with it, if we're targeting that we'll collect the 3 trillion for sure, then we know that we're going to collect, 3 trillion on their own. We're not going to pass, a law that someone, the Okia Mutatas of this day will go to court the following day and declare those revenue measures.
He's now a senator.
Because the honorable senator, it's my good friend. He's a very good gentleman. But also, and some, even more serious about it, let me tell you how the passing of those laws without following the due process and then being held by the court means to the debt ratio, to the issue of debt. Because we start with we approve the budget. We're saying that we have, say, a 3 trillion budget, for example. How are we going to finance a 3 trillion budget? Through this finance bill, and we're raising this 3 trillion shillings to finance this trillion budget. So the budget has been approved, then the finance bill has been approved. So if you go and stop any of those tax revenue measures that's supposed to finance the budget, then you find you have an approved budget of 3 trillion, but only with 2 trillion shillings to finance that budget. And because the state departments have already drawn their procurement plan, then they will start, technically they're already spending the money that has not been raised. And therefore, that's why now governments have been put in a catch-24 situation and now going to get to borrow from commercial banks, or because either way, the budget has been approved and the State Department had made their procurement plan. So this time around, we are very clear that we are going to make sure that we pass the law correctly. We are going to engage stakeholders. I'm not even looking forward to a conversation. And they have tried before, but not succeed, because go to a particular sector, for example. Say we want to collect 5 billion shillings from the liquor sector, for example. And then how best do we collect that? And I'm sure these sectors will have proposals that will say, if you give us excise duty at this percent, don't stop making excise duty at 10%. Charge us excise duty at 8%, and by that, just to that percentage point less, we are going to raise more revenue. Because there's a perception that has been also is that if you increase the rate of tax, then you actually increase the amount of revenue that you collect. But you have an economist that came up with something called the Laffer curve that actually shows that it's not all that if you increase the rate of tax, you're going to increase the amount of income that you collect up to a particular level, where any more increase in the rate of tax will actually lead to decrease in the amount of money we collect. And that's why the president is encouraging us to have all these conversations. So we're going to have a roundtable discussion with the stakeholders. We say, we need to collect this money from you, from this particular sector. How best do you think we can do this? And then put that into law, we actualize it, and I am sure then we can achieve the target the president has given us of raising the revenue for this country.
Senator, the growth of tax revenue has been gradual. I mean, since the time of President Kibaki, when it used to be about 400 billion. But now here you have a president who wants to grow it by 50% in a year's time and to double it in the next 5 years. What are the chances of success, and how should he go through this process of making those people that are not paying tax today to start paying and feel comfortable without some bit of resistance?
You know, President Kibaki was very lucky. A lot of Kenyans volunteered to pay taxes, even those who did not do so. And one of the ways of doing it is, first of all, encouraging Kenyans to love their country. And also, to be patriotic to the nation. And those who are making incomes which are not being disclosed, they disclose. They take the necessary measures with the Kenya Revenue Authority to be able to be accountable to pay taxes so that they can build their country. Because there are very many business people who should be paying taxes and other individuals who don't pay taxes. So President Kibaki was very lucky to get that goodwill, and we need goodwill from the people. The people will only give goodwill and will want to pay taxes when they know that once they pay taxes, the money is not going to be misappropriated, it isn't going to be stolen, it will not go into corruption, and it will build the nation. I'm sure everybody wants a good road to their rural home. Everybody wants electricity and water in their rural home. So and Kenyans love their country. That's why they have been very patient. That's why despite a very highly contested election, which is 50-50, Kenyans who lost felt it was time to move on and build their nation and wait for a better day in the future. So first of all, we have to grow as a country. And all those people who are employing and people who are they are supposed to be paying taxes, so that we make sure whatever employees you have, also they have their share of paying taxes and they have to be disclosed. KRA has no capacity to follow every single individual in the country. And there are very many people starting their businesses and escaping from paying taxes. So I believe you need that trust. You need to create trust to the government so that, this government I'm paying taxes to will actually deliver services to me. And that cannot happen out of empty talk. Okay. Kenyans need to see services be delivered. And for that to happen, the government also are going to invest in systems to help create new businesses. And the young people are very creative. They are already working online. A lot of those workings online are not being taxed. There are very many Kenyans working online, and you have to bring the nation to that level whereby whatever is electronic, whatever is online, is also captured so that it can happen. But the goodwill has to be there from Kenyans themselves. They have to love their government, they have to want to support it. And I believe if we do that, a lot more will happen. But
so what comes first? Because you have a population that is feels aggrieved by how the conduct of successive governments has been, and they feel like they've been let down. So how do you convince a Kenyan who is making some income elsewhere, avoiding the tax net of the government, how do you convince them now to voluntarily come and pay? As I said, one of the tasks of the president under the constitution is to bring all Kenyans together after an election. And secondly, to make systems to be efficient. The truth of the matter is we need a constitutional amendments in the country, and the president is recognizing some of these things. You have a chairman of a committee. These two are very senior in the National Assembly. You have a chairman of a committee who has to come to the House to represent a cabinet secretary who is afraid of facing the House or cannot explain even some of the questions being brought forward by members of parliament representing concerns of people all over the nation. And the moment that happens, you make this chairman of finance responsible for a minister, yet is not working as a minister, and is the one to come and present a report to the nation. That will not be convincing to Kenyans. The reality is we have to have certain constitutional amendments. This country
needs to be united. You need a proper prime minister, not one you are just putting there by force or by, and then no Kenyans are tired of asking questions.
So what is a proper prime minister?
You know what, in the constitution, so that it forms part of, you know, you don't pay a salary to an employee who is not in the constitution, you see. So we need minimum constitutional amendments to make the government flow. Why are you not holding
Senator,
a cabinet secretary?
Senator, you're confusing me. I've asked you a question that you have Kenyans, you're saying those working online, they need to start paying taxes.
Yes.
But they're paying taxes to a government that they don't trust.
Yes, or they don't like.
I'm not saying the government of William Ruto, I'm saying the government of Kenya. People don't trust it.
Yes.
How do you convince them to start voluntarily doing that?
First of all, is creating the goodwill. You know, government must show goodwill. I've said one of the things which has been opposed in the past, and it's necessary. You need minimum constitutional amendments to make the government run smoothly and liked by the people. You need to carry every Kenyan on board. One of the roles of the president is to unite Kenyans and make everybody patriotic to the nation and love it, so that people volunteer even to pay taxes to support that government, those who are not paying. And that will really go a long way to solve a lot of problems if the country is well funded by its people and by those who work, and especially those paid from abroad and have not been captured by the revenue system by themselves. And therefore, for you to do that, you need efficiency in the government. Because all these young people, they want to see an efficient government. They'll be wondering, why should I pay tax and my rural home has no electricity? When electricity goes off, it is not, it's not returned in good time because of inefficiency of Kenya Power and the police. So there are many other small things which are annoying a common Kenyan, so that they don't feel the need to support the government. And I believe those minimum constitutional amendments are important. And again, also look for goodwill. And whatever little Kenyans have raised, we should then see it be utilized properly. There has still not come up a plan on how to fight corruption in this country. We have not had a definite plan. We know even there's a corruption in Kenya Revenue Authority. Some people go and corrupt the officers so that they don't pay the necessary tax. We know there are very many Kenyans who should be paying serious tax who are running away from it. And when you trust a government, and the person running the government or the people running the government are of high integrity, then you will have a lot of other Kenyans of high integrity owning up and say, I want to pay these taxes to this government. Okay,
I hear you. Honorable Osoro, so as you reflect on that, the part that Honorable Kure says that the government will be looking towards public-private partnerships to invest in different projects, case in point, the Nairobi Expressway, never mind the contentious ultimate cost. So how do you protect the interest of Kenyans? Because if you're to put up dams through PPP, and then you will be charging the water you supply to the farmers or to the consumers or whatever, how do you protect them, knowing there's a case in point of the independent power producers that have led us to the situation we're in now, that the cost of power is extremely high?
Number one, Kenyans need to be informed on the reason behind the suggestion by His Excellency the President on the PPPs. We have, as I had earlier said, we have a bloated economy, like His Excellency Deputy President always says. We raise on or about 2.2 or 2.3 thereabout in taxation, in revenue as a country, but our budget always exceeds 3 trillion. And in some few years, we've been exceeding 3 trillion. And it will shock Kenyans to know that about $1 billion or so goes to salaries, or 1.5 billion. And then another about 500 billion gets to counties and the executive, some ministries and stuff like that. So you are left with about 100 billion, and you haven't done anything yet in terms of development. You haven't done roads, you haven't done water. And that is what my colleague, Senator, says, that Kenyans need to see service deliveries. But where is the money? What you raise? And by the way, as it is right now, and it's just a very sad event, there is no, we don't qualify for lending. because, if we go outside to seek some debt, then they'll give us based on their terms, because we've surpassed, our lending level, because, we have no capacity to pay. And any lender looks at the capacity to pay. We do not have the capacity to pay because we're already paying a lot of debts outside there when you look at the collections and stuff like that. So it is what forms the president's proposal on the PPPs, because you need water. And the only way you can get this water is if we work with the economy as we are, we stop paying our debts, which you already have, the foreign debts and the local debts and stuff like that, which is, of course, not possible. And then we possibly borrow again on high interest, which again will affect the common mwananchi. So what forms the PPP's proposal, in my opinion, and His Excellency's thinking in his own wisdom, is that now, because the Kenyans want water, engage a private person. Engage a person to enter into a PPP with the government of Kenya on a little bit of, some damage, a little bit later after it's done, without really affecting the economy, without over-borrowing, which is more expensive than paying for that service. 20 shillings. For example, if you're paying 20 shillings, I'm giving an example, if you're paying 20 shillings per liter of that water, it's way better than you paying 100 shillings in taxation to pay a foreign debt. So this is a mitigation measure that is formed from the onset as a matter of, mitigating these challenges of revenue collection. And by the way, even as he said, there's a point Senator has just said here that you do not need, as it is right now, that you need a constitutional review to have even the CSS come to Parliament and stuff like that. There is no law that bars us from amending the standing orders to have the CSS appear before us in the National Assembly. Because right now they appear in the National Assembly by proxy, as it is. As it is right now, the Minister for Treasury appears in the National Assembly through Honorable Kuria Kimani by proxy. Because anytime a member of Parliament raises a question that touches on the Treasury, it is Kuria Kimani that will answer as a chairman of the Finance Committee. How would he answer that? By getting instructions or going to have a meeting with the CS Treasury, get some notes and everything, then comes to present to us. So they appear before us by proxy. And right now what we are doing, as a matter of oversight, as enshrined in Article 95 and 96, we need to amend our standing orders, both in the Senate and in the National Assembly, that these ministers appear before us besides the bar, not exactly within the plenary, outside the bar, because there is not the bar.
Carry on.
there is a bar that, in the National Assembly or in Parliament, there is always a bar that sets a distinction of those who are outside Parliament and inside Parliament. So you create a space outside the bar where these people come and sit, and then given an opportunity, a microphone is set there, they answer questions in Parliament as an oversight role. So that also will be able to help us. And finally, the issue of revenue collection, there's a principle. It's not just luck that President Kibaki had, as my colleague has said. It is also what Kibaki really preached over time, that kulipa ushuru ni kujitegemea. And that message really rang in people's minds over time, and people were really voluntarily paying taxes. And of course, they were seeing services, as he said. But we started losing it in the last regime when we set retributive measures on tax evasion, that it became a treason, extreme treason, or what I'll call extreme treason, to fail to pay tax. And you would see dramatic arrests stopping business, instead of giving people even having a sit down and coming up even with moratorium structures on how you can pay taxes and everything as business continuity progressed. There was no increase of revenue collection in the last regime because there was no motivation to pay. It was set it wasn't set as a patriotism measure and making Kenyans understand that you need roads, you need to pay taxes. It was set for a few. It was a political weapon, that those who are supposed to pay taxes are those who are from the other side of the political
What do you mean when you say there was no growth of revenue collection?
There was no such, what I'll call good growth on revenue collection. The set targets were not surpassed because of lack of motivation. Like if you set it, like right now we are setting a target.
Honorable Soro, in 2013, the government collected 871 billion shillings.
Exactly.
In 2022, it collected 2 trillion shillings.
No. You also need to look at the perpetual growth of economy. It's, you know, you don't look at it on face value. That's
what I'm saying.
The 1,000 of 2013. And you see, you've already said the target that we're having here is to increase our tax revenue collection by about 50% of what we are collecting right now.
Right.
And that, you can't spread it just exactly. Even if you choose to spread it within 5 years, then you are, when you look at it pro rata basis on the economic of scale, how we are growing economically, you will not look at it like you've grown by 100 billion in 5 years and call that one as growth. Because the 1,000 of 2013 is not the 1,000 of 2022.
No, and that is true. You're not referring to the time value of money. But if you talk about the absolute terms, and I'm looking at the figures, 2013 is what I've told you, 871. 2017 it was 1.5. Just hold on. 2017 it was 1.5 trillion. That's almost double.
Exactly.
President William Ruto wants to grow it from 2 trillion to 4 trillion in 2027.
Exactly.
At the expiry of 5 years. So it's in absolute terms, it's double.
Now, it's not into, okay, if I got him right in our retreat, we are at about 2 trillion right now. We want to grow it at least in this first year.
To 3.
To 3.
Yes.
So that's already like 50% growth.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
And that can only happen if we use patriotism measures other than retributive measures. What I'm saying, the previous regime would have done it better had we stopped, you know, weaponizing it, you know, KRA, like you use it for political, it was more or less like a punitive measure for political nemesis for the previous regime, which really affected their revenue collection. But if we make it look like, you know, it's very important for Kenyans to know that if you pay taxes, you're only helping yourself. You're not helping the government. When you pay that tax, when you go to file returns, you are helping yourself to make that road. Over time, Kenyans like complaining about roads. Oh, poor roads. Oh, we do not have water. We do not have electricity. But they don't realize that the electricity is done by them through paying taxes. And that is what Kuria Kimani said, that why would you be running a business name? And you've really grown massively, but you're operating within the business name framework. So we need to find a way, even on the business name, even as you do returns as a company, then somebody is also running the very same business as a business name, which is not illegal. We find a way to also have these people pay taxes, not as individuals, but as businesses.
Okay. Senator, do you have any thoughts about how to protect Kenyans from PPPs? Because with that case in point of electricity, once a dam is put up and the water is being supplied and it's being charged at a high rate, life becomes difficult for those that are using it. So what measures must be put as the government signs these contracts? Yes,
you know, the signing of the PPs is, happening like an experiment. And there must be proper planning. First of all, we must make Kenya conducive for investors. Electricity in Kenya is very expensive for anyone who wants to start business here. And a good case in point is Samia Africa, which was manufacturing tires here for tough terrain. And now they are manufacturing in China. Other countries, are offering better environment for investors. And first of all, investors who want to invest in Kenya, and even local investors, Kenyans who want to invest at home, are finding it difficult to start because of high cost of power. And the power is very important. For whatever you do, even with the construction of the dams and all that, there is a lot of welding and a lot of other things to do, which includes power. And power has also been manufactured privately here and sold to, to the main supplier, Kenya Power, at a very high cost. And therefore, Kenyans eventually end up paying high cost. and that stalls, possible investments, which will create more employment to young people and create the payment of more taxes. So we have to plan very well, and there has to be proper research, and there has to be proper public participation to make sure when you do like we have done with the expressway, people are very happy to go quickly through the expressway. But eventually, if you calculate the cost, it's really high in a way. So you want to make sure that somebody has gone through the expressway, we have paid for the expressway, but at the same time, you have not been exploited. You have not been left without savings to invest in the country so that we can also serve the same purpose. Similarly, if you do water projects, I heard the government planning to do 100 dams, at least 2 big dams per constituency. And if you are going to sell this water very expensively to poor constituents, then you may not exactly meet what you wanted to do. So I believe there's a keen balance there. And you need a lot of goodwill from local investors, international investors, and countries grow because of investments, local and international investments. So we need to make it conducive for local investors and international investors to come and do business in our country. There has to be, lease. Land is a very important capital in this. But to get land for investment in Kenya for a local or international person is such a challenge. The leases, the processing of title deeds, and that sort of thing. So I really want to insist that government has to be efficient. It has to create conducive environment for investors, because that's why we are going to grow the monies to build the country. That's why you are going to get the taxes. That's why you are going to employ many Kenyans. There are very many unemployed Kenyans. And self-employment has not been encouraged. Every young person is looking into a white-collar job. We want young people to invest in agriculture, to invest in, to be able to grow food. And our own young people who have done farming here and have a lot of maize to sell, they have worked very hard. Then they are told of imported maize, GMO. Yet Kenyans can be able to feed fellow Kenyans. We have to look at the young Kenyan here who is doing a good job and encourage him to sell and also to pay taxes and to feed the nation. I believe we can be efficient, but we must really create an environment for investment locally and internationally. And I believe that's what will grow our economy. We have to invest in irrigation. And we have to invest in research to make sure what exactly is GMO. What has GMO done in other countries? Will it improve our economy or will it kill our economy? Are we making a few people rich who are doing business internationally with us and even refusing to pay taxes? We must make sure those who are highly connected are the ones who lead by example to pay taxes. But the highly connected people, the government people, the ministers, the people ruling us are the ones who are running away from pay taxes, and the KRA has no power to ask them to pay taxes. So we should have a system.
They have no power, they've been curtailed.
Yes, well, there are cartels, and there are connections, and there are people even who are not, you have to be prosecuted or encouraged to pay taxes without being forced, or a system. But you find the people who should be paying taxes in this country are actually not paying taxes. They're taking advantage of the country.
I hear you. And Honorable Kuria, so much about the expectations, especially on the side of the government, and a bit of it from Parliament. But on the political scene and matters that have really been hot towards the end, or hot towards the end of 2022, like I said earlier, there will be recruitment of IEBC commissioners. At least, there are 3 vacancies at the moment, and there will be 3 just after mid this month. And this has been a divisive issue. First of all, from the amendments that were before the House, I think the bill is still at the Senate level. I don't know how soon it will be concluded. But what do you foresee? Because this is an important body when it comes to matters democracy in this country. So what for you must tick for us to get it right in reconstituting IEBC?
Thank you very much, Sam. We've learned a bit the hard way. That the laws that we make, that the decisions that we make needs to be for the good of the country. And if you don't do that, then you could be making a decision skewed in a particular way, hoping that that decision or that piece of law would help you, only to find yourself on the receiving end on the other hand. I'm talking about some laws that we passed in the last parliament, some of the approvals, including the hiring of, of these commissioners, and they were supposed to probably, in fact, the thinking was they're supposed to skew the results of the election in a particular way, only for it not to happen. And so I'm really looking at an objective recruitment of these commissioners. I'm looking forward to having competent, effective, bipartisan, qualified Kenyans who are not going to be there to serve the political interests of any political side. Mm-hmm. So I'm looking forward to having truly independent commissioners. And I'm saying independent, that they must be seen, they must be perceived, the way they carry themselves, the way they will be recruited must be independent. And people now that will be going to give us a credible election that Kenyans are going to believe in and are going to accept the outcome of it. And for the first time, a not so expensive election, because we ran some of the most expensive elections in the world. Mm-hmm. So where I think it's more by plan, where funds are not being released, were not released by the last regime to IEBC on time for them to procure the necessary, whether it is the election materials, and so we end up with IEBC that bought whether it was SIM cards, whether it was the ballot papers, whatever it is, at inflated costs, for the reason that they had to do last-minute procurement process. They had to do restricted bidding because there was no time. Their time plans, their time frame that they needed to achieve, and then they were not adequately financed and on time. So I'm really looking forward that we are going to be very decisive in the process, that without avoidance of doubt, having competent, truly independent Kenyans who are going to have the heart of these Kenyans, who are going to have the heart of the Republic at heart, and are going to give us a credible elections that Kenyans are going to believe in, that the rate or the cost of that election should be, not as exorbitant or as expensive as the previous elections has been. And I'm really hoping that even with the temptation to make sure that we have our people or people perceived to be supporting of a particular political agenda do not find their way to be these commissioners. There are very many Kenyans who are competitive, who are competent, who have had decorated careers in respective fields that fit really the constitutional requirement to be commissioners of IEBC. And hopefully then, once they get that, they're going to run it competently and effectively and deliver to us a credible election. And also, that selection we had, I think, one of the lowest voter turnout. So I'm also looking forward to an IEBC that is proactive in terms of constant engagement with Kenyans. Telling them what their role is, not as just seeing IEBC during election time, because I think, if you ask any Kenyan out there what IEBC will do, then they will tell you that they run the election. And of course, the president's mandate is to run the election, but there are a lot of processes and there are a lot of activities that go on even before elections. We have permanent and pensionable IEBC staff. Right. And so I think I'm looking forward to a commission that will be able to sell its agenda more to the people, so that Kenyans can understand what they do, that hopefully we're going to have more Kenyans being registered to vote, and actually even more Kenyans turning up to vote. In addition, to making sure that because IEBC is a mkunga, who gives us the political leadership, and so I'm also looking forward to seeing programs by IEBC telling us what the roles of these particular positions of office are, and hopefully even being able to convince more young people, more women, and even people with disabilities coming out and seeking elective positions in the next general election and even the one after that.
Okay, I hear you say that IEBC should be telling the people what your positions are, but I would imagine that the better example would be what you're doing, if they're able to monitor what you're doing at the moment. But Honorable Silvanus Osoro, your reflections about what sort of an IEBC we must have, knowing that Raila Odinga, the leader of Azimio, has been saying that Wafula Chebukati and company should actually be prosecuted at the ICC, talking of there has to be fair reconstitution of a commission.
You see, matters election in this country are very sensitive, and it's indeed true, as my colleague has said, that we need to really reflect on our history as a country. And in as much as, of course, some political leaders like Right Honorable Raila Odinga are complaining, we also must appreciate the strides that we've made as a country as far as political reforms are concerned. And for me, IEBC going forward should, and not just IEBC, all constitutional independent bodies should actually be left as the definition of their words, independent. That we should have bodies, independent bodies, called independent, operate independent, you know, do everything about themselves independent, as the law stipulates. And we've not really had a good history, but we've really grown progressively and positively so far. And even the recent happenings about, in as much as there were a bit of some negative issues with the IEBC and even the presidential elections, at least we had at least a few reasonable minds that stood firm on the independence of the IEBC. And for me, I look forward to getting a body that is more organized, that is that plans well, you know, knows that election is just 5 years ahead of them, or 3 years or whatever ahead of them, and they stop counting the number of years and start counting the number of months. Because, you know, when you talk about 5 years, it sounds a lot of times, I mean, a long time. But it's just 60 months, by the way. And since we got elected, we've 4 months are over, so we are left with only 56 months. So the IEBC that comes forth in the near future should be focusing on such. Do things early, do planning quite early, and avoid being micromanaged by any quarter, be it politics or leadership of this country, executive or any person, unlike what we had. And they should also not follow the marking scheme of the opposition leader, that unless he wins election, then IEBC, you know, the chairman should be in jail. I mean, really, we can't use that. We've been... Raila has been on record. By the way, I was watching a video last night, a small documentary of Right Honorable Raila Odinga, that in 1997 he came out and said the IEBC, it used to be called Electoral Body or something.
ECK.
ECK, yes, Electoral Commission of Kenya. He said the chairman then should be arrested and we can't accept the results. Then I also watched I think the only one that he didn't say that is 202, because it was in the camp that won. But in 2007, he said the ECK chair, the late Samuel Kivuitu, should be in jail. In 2013, he said Isaac Hassan should be in jail. In 2022, he said Wafula Chebukati should be in jail in 2017. And then in 2022, he's also said Wafula Chebukati should be in jail. So really, we cannot be using Raila Odinga's marking scheme as far as who does best in the IEBC is concerned. We should let independent bodies be independent. And that is why the lack of independence of some few commissioners has affected their career. I mean, I happened to sit in that committee, and they couldn't even defend themselves. They couldn't even have that confidence to appear before us, because they knew what they had done to this country, really, getting instructions from some quarters. In fact, some things that we got, some information that we got in the petition, there are things that if we tell Kenyans, we'll be shocked. I mean, really, that immediately after they finished even from bombers, they went to Serena. After Serena, they were hosted in some apartment by the opposition leader, Right Honorable Raila Odinga and his team. So it's very sad.
You don't know that?
I know that because I sit in a committee that investigated this.
You know, Silvanus Osoro, I've had the presentations that are before the Agri Muchelule team, and they were talking about an individual who had paid for the appearance at Serena and paid for the accommodation at that apartment in Kilimani And that name is not Raila Odinga.
You've just followed. You're going on. I mean, I think that is a single document that you must have seen. I happen to have sat in the hearing from day one. I mean, and we are actually the people who admitted the documents in the National Assembly as a committee. And I can tell you, the details, we really need not to have such a discussion. But I have to tell you that Raila Odinga is entirely involved in this whole thing.
No, I'm not saying he's not involved. I'm talking about your specific statement.
But it is true.
That he hosted them.
No, he didn't host them. He was present. No, I've just said he was present. They went to meet. They went to meet Raila Odinga. And they
now you're going back on your own words. You said hosting, and that's what I was trying to clarify. But anyway, I hear you, what you're saying. Senator, I mean, I'm just doing that because we need to be factual, Mheshimiwa Soro.
Yes.
But Senator Manzo, so yes, there's all that noise about IEBC and what has to be done, but also there's the question, if you can comment about that, but there's also the question of the politics of 2023. On one side, you have the Kenya Kwanza, they are in government, obviously. On this other side, you have the Azimio movement. Raila Odinga is quoted as saying that, indeed, we're still in the coalition. There's still active engagement. Is it true that the principals within Azimio movement are still in constant consultations about that coalition party?
Yes, it is. And Kenya needs a very strong opposition. And therefore, Azimio has to work together. I know they're in consultation. I know there's been a lot of speculation about former President Uhuru Kenyatta. He has his freedoms of association and choices enshrined in the Constitution. He can participate in politics. Nothing stops him from doing so. Therefore, Kenya needs a very, very strong opposition so that we can check the government of the day to make sure that there is delivery of services and the smooth running of the country. So the role of opposition is very important. And I like the fact that President Ruto says he needs a strong opposition. Many presidents in the world fear the opposition or destroy the opposition. So I believe with a strong opposition, then we will check the government of the day. But at the same time, on the issue of the commissioners, you see, IEBC is free to meet whatever side of political divide, especially on matters in relation to elections. So whatever meetings have been made between any commissioner and any person is shared between both sides, and any of the people can consult, can make consultation with the electoral body. For now, really, everything is known, and it's a matter of public notoriety. There's nothing wrong Commissioner Masit did, and even for historical memory of the commission, she should be cleared. I see no reason other than political why she should not be cleared, and that's why she has stuck to her guns. You know that she is innocent, and when it comes to reconstituting the commission, obviously Parliament as a role and the President as a role, and therefore it's likely to be one-sided and it's likely to be biased. So I propose we go the way one time we did the IPPG. A representation of political parties, because that gives a representation of the country and regional balance and shades of opinion in the nation. And when that comes to play, Kenyans of goodwill and Kenyans who are qualified should come forth to be nominated as commissioners and to be vetted. But at the same time, we need to think of balance, political balance, regional balance, because the commission is about politics. It should not be one-sided. It should be...
That's interesting, Senator, because at the moment there's a bill that is before the Senate seeking to reconfigure who nominates people to the selection panel and who doesn't. Then where does IPPG model come in such a situation?
Well, this bill may not cover, all aspects of a free and fair commission, or a commission totally independent of any political influence. And on top of this bill, which may be delayed, a bill is subject to a lot of processes. including a signature by the president. So if a bill is not yet signed by the president, it may be, the commissioners may be put into place even before the bill becomes law. And the bill may be overtaken by that particular event. Therefore, to make Kenyans satisfied and to carry everybody on board, as it is a responsibility of the president, we have 50-50 situation in the country. A closely contested election, and Kenyans of different opinions not be taken care of in this matter of reconstituting the electoral body. And you see, so long as half of Kenyans have no confidence with whatever body will be formed, our problems are not solved. Therefore, that's why I'm just saying...
How can you not have confidence about a future body?
You know, if it has not been properly constituted or it is one-sided, the process is such that it has to be done by the majority of the House. For anybody to become commissioner...
Wait, so the recruitment panel will have representation from the Public Service Commission, the Parliamentary Service Commission, the Interreligious Council, and the LSK. So how is that one-sided?
Once that particular process is done, then the process now goes to the House.
So it is the panel that you will invite applications.
Yes.
It will interview them and shortlist and give names to the president, and the president will submit names of 6 commissioners and 1 chair if you're reconstituting the entire commission for the House to consider. So how is that one-sided?
That's something we did last time.
Yes.
And it came out with a complaint that 4 of the commissioners are one-sided, remember. So we don't want to repeat history. And that's how you ended up in the Bombers, we ended up in the Serena, we ended up into the commission.
Fine.
We ended up into some investigation.
The allegations are on record, but I'm asking you because the 3 vacancies already existent. After Chebukati team leaves, those will be 6. We don't know the fate of Masit, but eventually it will be determined. So how does recruiting 6 new commissioners, including a chair, become one-sided? That's what I'm not getting.
It can easily be skewed politically because of the players. And what we want a process which will seem to be free and fair, so that even those nominations, they are filtered, so that whoever Kenyan has made an application is considered, and we must have regional balance, so that every region in the country is represented. One of the ways of doing that is involving political parties, so that there is consultation, even if they are not conclusive.
Senator, you know too well it's not possible to represent every region. 6 commissioners and a chair. How many regions do you have in the country?
Ordinarily, we used to have 8 regions.
Those are provinces. But if you're talking about the regional balance of politicians, then it's something different. But Honorable Kuria, then, as you wind up then, in that reconstitution, how should it be done, in your view?
I'm really looking forward to the objectivity of the people that are going to do the recruitment, in terms of them reading the mood of the country, them reading the mood of Kenyans, and giving us, credible, competent commissioners. And I'm saying there's a few of contradiction. We have a lot of competent Kenyans, and they're going to apply for those jobs. So when they'll be recruiting them, let them not, let them be the Supreme Court judges. When they were retreating to make the ruling for the presidential petition, they said, we understand you people, a lot of you tried to call us, but we agreed that we're not going to take our funds. So if really we have, and I find the constitution of this body that's going to invite applications for the commissioners being very balanced, and like what the Honorable Mazo is saying. So if they really become objective, and then the process is above board, and they give us commissioners that are going to reflect, the phase of competence. I look for the phase of competence, and like what the Honorable Senator is talking about, because what it means by regional balance, talking about communities. We're looking at if they give us commissioners that have the phase of competence, that have, the heart of this country at heart, that they are patriotic Kenyans and competent, you know, because they could, and again, I have to overemphasize competence, you know. I'm looking forward to having a face of a commission that seeks competence, so that the next election, people can vote and go home and wait for the results. And whoever is announced as a winner, the country can move forward. A commission that's going to see continuous engagement and what they do, not just during the election. I've sometimes wondered, for example, that why we have to register for an ID and then later go and register, you know, to vote. And I thought it's a legal issue, but these are some of the ways that the commission should explore. Okay. Developed countries have, you know, a ballot voting. Our Kenyans in diaspora, you know, want to be more involved in elections, in voting on this country, and not just voting for the president. They want to be able to vote for the governor and all those positions. And I'm sure with ample planning, with competent leadership, you know, it's not so much to ask. Okay. We can actually have a
I hear you, Honorable Kuria, and I have to say that I've had that conversation so many times that we shouldn't have to register for an ID and then to register as a voter, but unfortunately, it is within your power. You're the lawmakers. You can change it if there's that desire. And thank you all for making time for us. I want us to take a look at the feedback that has been coming to us via Twitter at Citizen TV Kenya. The hashtag to use is Daybreak. Reverend Harry Kosgei, you're saying that welcome back on the show. Happy New Year. Mine is to say, let the new administration keep on implementing its pledges. Thus, let's pay taxes. Good times are ahead. God bless. Babu Michael, you're saying, I feel the Ruto administration is not giving corruption the attention it needs. This is what, in one way or the other, is hurting our economy. Even if we raise taxes up to 6 trillion, will it be spent properly? It's a question. Sawe, Happy New Year, and the panelists, welcome back. Debrek, let the current administration fulfill the pledges and stop more boardroom promises. What Kenyans want is action and more action, nothing else. It's our responsibility to pay taxes. Let's pay taxes. That is according to Sawe. Engineer Lazaro, you're saying, Honorable Osoro, Kenyans are only waiting to see your campaign pledges being implemented. We are no longer interested to hear what was going on at the Bomas. Please advise your party leader to concentrate in building the nation. That is Engineer Lazaro speaking to us via Twitter. And you can also have your say. The conversation continues. Tomorrow, we'll be taking time to also reflect on what's ahead for devolution in the year 2023. Of course, the very first full year for governors, some new, some serving their second term. We'll be sure to be having that conversation here on Daybreak. Honorable Osoro, thank you so much. Senator Manzo, as well as Honorable Kuria Kimani, thank you for making time for us.
We did not have closing remark today.
You want to close?
Yeah, we wanted to close.
How do you want to close?
I want to tell the Kenyans that the plane has left the airport.
It's not the train in the station.
No, it's now the plane. And the pilot is in full control. A bit of turbulence, a little bit, but we'll get to the stabilization lane shortly because the pilot is fully in control of the plane.
Okay. Senator Manzo, any closing remarks?
Yes, we look forward to delivery of services. We look forward into fighting of corruption so that we don't raise 6 trillion shillings and 4 trillion ends up in individuals' pockets.
Okay. Honorable Kimani.
I want to assure Kenyans that President Ruto will get the job done, and his men and women will be there to support and oversight and make sure that the job is done efficiently and effectively. But I assure you, President Ruto is going to get the job done.
Okay, Osoro, we don't do that. Just took the show on a different trajectory, but it's the first one of the year, so you can have that opportunity to pull it in that direction. My name is Sam Gituku. See you tomorrow. Up next is Sporty Monday. They'll be here to tell you about the action that has been taking place since they were last here, and of course, so many other developments in the sports sector. Bye for now.